Well, look, I understand when I argue against this by saying Israel's not that stupid, then people can offer up example after example where Israel has done something incredibly stupid. So, uh, but the if they tried some sort of attack on the funeral, and specifically to kill any of the Iranian leaders, while you have Dmitry Medvedev of Russia there. I don't know if the Chinese rep was Wang Yi, the
Yeah.
foreign minister.
No, no, it's a representative of the Communist Party, if I'm not mistaken. Yeah.
You got the delegation from India. I don't know who they sent, but this would have global ramifications. I would say that for those people who are longing for the destruction of Israel, they should probably hope they do this, because if Israel did that kind of attack, it would likely lead to the destruction of Israel. Because I don't see Iran restraining itself in its retaliation, and that the retaliation would continue until Israel surrendered. I don't think it'll happen, simply because it would be, while Israel acts in a suicidal manner at times, this would be suicide. And I think Bibi and others understand that this would further isolate Israel in a way that it has never been isolated.
Yeah. Here says the vice chairman of China's National People's Congress, and yeah, I don't know the positions in China, but it says vice chairman of China. But considering the countries around Iran, all of them, their president, prime ministers are there, but except Turkey and Azerbaijan, they have sent the head of the parliament to the event. And Erdogan said after the funeral, he's gonna go personally to Iran.
Who said that?
Erdogan.
Oh, Erdogan. Okay.
Yeah.
But again, you got Turkey is there, Azerbaijan's there.
Yeah.
I presume Armenia sent someone?
Armenia is Pashinyan there.
Oh, Pashinyan's there. Okay, so this would be it'd just be sheer madness to try to attack. We've had these high-profile funerals in the past, and there have always been the fears expressed. But like when John F. Kennedy was killed, you had leaders from around the world show up. So I understand it. It's people are not being foolish for wondering if that's a possibility, but I think it's not. I don't think anything's going to happen in that regard.
Yeah. It seems that the airspace of Iran is closed. The airspace of Tehran, at least, if I'm not, it's not the country, but the airspace of the province of Tehran is closed. That is not the city of Tehran.
Mm-hmm.
In order to avoid any sort of attacks or something like that. I really feel the same way, Larry. I don't think that Israel going to be that stupid to go against. It's too much. It's too much.
It goes back to what are you trying to accomplish? So let's say they could kill the Ayatollah. Okay, that's not going to cause Iran to collapse. All it's going to do is, at that point, enrage Iran even further, and then up to this point, you can make an argument that the Iranians have been very foolish to cut deals to agree to ceasefires. But I don't know what their internal situation is or what their thinking is, but they could have kept up and say, no, we're not going to stop until Israel has withdrawn from Gaza, until Israel has withdrawn from the West Bank, or well, we'll destroy Israel. Now, at that point, then the Israelis have to reconsider what they're doing.
In the past, when we had assassinations of the Iranian scientists, the Iranian public figures, politicians, we haven't seen that much of response directly to Israelis' actions.
Right.
Is that going to change, you think?
Well, I don't know. If we use history as the basis for predicting the future, then you'd say, yeah, probably not. It's not going to change. And in that respect, Iran will continue to be a target. If instead Iran turns around and says, okay, we're gonna throw everything we have at Israel. We are going to destroy every single one of their military bases, every one of their nuclear research sites, everything. We're not going to stop. That would send a message. It would, and at that point, I think Israel would be in serious trouble. So they've up to this point they've been able to conduct these terrorist operations without actually suffering any serious consequences.
Yeah. Donald Trump is trying to convince Iranian not to just to open up the Strait of Hormuz without any toll or fee. Instead, they're going to get their frozen assets back. And it was reported that Iran has rejected that. So yesterday he said that he's using the southern part of the Strait of Hormuz together with the Omani government, and he's using the American forces to help these vessels, ships, to pass through the Strait of Hormuz without Iran knowing that. They say we turn off everything and we're gonna pass. Let's assume that how many ships can they, support or somehow help to pass through the Strait of Hormuz as time goes by?
Well, he's implying that there are U.S. naval ships there present in the Strait of Hormuz. There are not. That's number one. The so-called escorts they've done is have airplanes fly overhead, but those aren't combat aircraft. Those aren't aircraft capable of close air support. They're like surveillance aircraft. I'm looking at the map right now, the Strait of Hormuz at marinetraffic.com. There's not a damn thing moving through it. There is, it looks like a Chinese ship called the King Chain, and it's headed towards Singapore. But it's halfway between. It's right out in the middle of the channel, so it looks like it's following the Iranian route, not the Omani route.
Yeah.
And I'm just looking to see what ships have come out in the last 8 hour. There's I just see only two or three. There's not a lot of activity, and this is the problem for Donald Trump. He said that we'd be out of oil in 4 weeks. He said that 3 weeks ago, and actually he's right on that, on the timing, because the kind of oil that comes out of the Persian Gulf is, let's call it sour crude. It has a high sulfur content. Now, the United States could make diesel out of sweet crude, but the problem is the refineries that the U.S. has, the majority of them, are not set up to make diesel and aviation fuel out of that sweet crude. They need this high sulfur that comes out of the Persian Gulf. And I think at least prior to the February 28th, at least 10% of the U.S. supply was from the Persian Gulf. So, since April, since March 11th or March 18th, That was when Secretary Wright announced that, okay, we're going to start pulling oil from the Strategic Petroleum Reserve. And what they're pulling out 1.4 million barrels a day of this sour crude that is high in sulfur content that's used to make diesel and aviation fuel. They have a 120-day supply. Well, just do the math. From that point in March until now, till today, they have 8 days left. And then then they exhaust what's in the Strategic Petroleum Reserve. They won't be able to have any more to draw out. What they were hoping when Trump signed that MOU was to get rapid movement of oil coming back to the United States, and that's not happening. Most of the oil that's coming out of the Persian Gulf right now is headed to China and South Korea. It's going to Asia. It's not coming to the United States. And the other thing that people need to really keep in mind is that let's say that he had 10 big tankers, the VLCCs, the super tankers, filled to the brim with 2 million barrels of oil. So you'd have 20 million barrels, which is the equivalent of a day's consumption in the United States, that had just left the Strait of Hormuz. It's gonna take them 42 days to get to the United States, because the speed that these ships sail. So the United States is facing a real problem that it's not going to have enough of the high sulfur oil it needs to create diesel and aviation fuel. And so that's going to create shortages, and that's going to create some serious economic issues.
How about Venezuela? Because
Venezuela doesn't make up the deficit. So, because right now, outside of the Persian Gulf, the biggest suppliers of that high sulfur oil is Canada, Mexico, and Venezuela. But again, it's not like they can flip a switch and boost production. Venezuela is already producing as much as it can.
Yeah. Because the infrastructure is not there. That's the problem.
Right.
No, it's not just about the resources that they have. You have to be able to extract it.
Right.
That's important. And today, Larry, the armed forces of Yemen, they said this Friday, today, Saudi warplanes violated the airspace of Yemen in an attempt to prevent an Iranian civil aircraft carrying more than 200 citizens from landing in Sana'a airport in Yemen, which, later on they confronted, the Saudi aircraft or fighter jet by their air defense system, finally forced the Saudi fighter jet out of, the region. This is I'm so confused with the behavior of Saudi Arabia in Yemen, because it's been 11 years of these sort of activities against Yemen, and it doesn't seem that they're going to learn anything from that.
Yeah, no, that's one of the obstacles or potential obstacles for, even though the Saudis and Iranians have reestablished diplomatic relations. This is one of those irritants in that relationship that can actually create further separation. So someone said to me yesterday, who lives in the region, who's a consultant, an energy consultant. He said, you can't trust the Saudis. They'll tell you one thing and do the exact opposite. MBS is a real problem. And, we saw a glimpse of that the other day when all the representatives, every country in the region but Iran was meeting with Brad Cooper, the admiral in charge of CENTCOM. And basically it was, I'd call it an anti-Iranian meeting. And it's like, those countries should have told the United States, no, screw you. We're not coming to that. No. So there's still they have not broken the dependence on the United States.
Yeah. I think with the new reality of the Strait of Hormuz, there are countries that trying to connect with both Iran and Oman right now. For example, we had France going to Macron talking with Omani government about the new sort of supply from Oman to France. And today we have, at least three, Japanese buyers. They're negotiating with Iranians. I don't know how many. It's been a while that they haven't received any oil or gas from Iran, but right now they're talking with Iranians. They want to normalize the situation. They want to receive more oil from Iran. And on the other hand, they're somehow under the thumb of the foreign policy in Washington.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know how do you see the reaction from Washington if they decide to buy oil from Iran and they're going to be dependent somehow on Iranian oil, because when you buy oil from some countries, you have to modify your whole refinery system. It's not something overnight. That was one of the main reasons for China that didn't shift from Iran to other countries.
Right. Yeah.
How-
No. Look. This is. There are lots of problems. With both, let's call them international problems and challenges with, like, if the Japanese decide to do that, and then you even got some biological, environmental problems. All what people have forgotten is all these ships that have been sitting there at anchor in the Persian Gulf. They got crews on board. The crews poop into their sewer system, internal sewer system, and a lot of those ships have been dumping that sewage into the Persian Gulf. And I just read a story that on Dubai, the beaches are now getting contaminated with human waste. Pretty nasty. And they haven't actually thought through the full effects of having that many ships in there with all that sewage getting dumped into the Persian Gulf, which is essentially sort of a closed system. I mean, it's not washing out into the ocean immediately. So this is, there's going to be some other long-term consequences from this.
Yesterday, I talked with Professor Ted Postel, and he was just analyzing the Patriot system and the air defense system of Israel. And he brought some videos and explained some new realities that we haven't. I
Right.
didn't know. We knew the context of what's going on. We knew somehow the big picture of what's going on during those days, but he brought in some sort of details about how these missiles are working, and they're going somehow like this. And in the videos, he shows that. And he basically says, look at the footages. Those, you remember our friends like Max Blumenthal and these people went to Iran to see some of these missiles in Iran.
Right.
They took pictures, and in those pictures you see the fins. You have the warhead,
Mm-hmm.
and the warhead has some sort of fins and wings or something like that. And then what Professor Ted Postel said, that's bad news for the air defense systems, because it means that it's maneuverable.
Right.
If it goes there, it can find its way to hit the targets, and it's too difficult for the Patriot system or any air defense system to hit these sort of missiles.
Right. Yeah. No, I think I didn't see your interview with him yet, but I did see he did a similar thing with Danny Davis, and pointed out that the Patriot system was only 10% effective, and that's why I say that Iran's in a position to do real damage to Israel with its ballistic missiles if it decides, okay, we're going to go all in. We're not going to stop, because it was of all the missiles fired for air defense during the 42 days from February 28th to April 7th. 2/3 of the ones that were fired for air defense were the U.S. systems, Patriot and THAAD. And according to TED, only less than 10% of them hit their targets. So that means over 90% of the ballistic missiles landed unmolested in Israel. So that's why I maintain that Iran's actually in a strong position that if Israel doesn't stop, then Iran can really do significant damage to them.
Yeah. One of the warheads that he showed us, it was like this, jumping like this.
Yeah.
The other one was somehow zigzag, some sort of movement like this. And these are, I think, he said that there is some sort of engine behind it that is doing these sort of movements before hitting the targets. It's too difficult. I don't know if any of these air defense systems in the world would be able to hit these sort of missiles. And basically, the missiles, the technology of missiles are far, ahead of the air defense systems. Not only in Iran, in Russia, everywhere.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah. No, look, it is we've now seen, with respect to like Patriot missile systems, we've seen in whether it's Ukraine or in Israel, they don't work. I mean, they may work against certain targets, but particularly against the cruise missiles and ballistic missiles, they're ineffective.
Yeah. Larry, the assassination is part of the Israeli strategy, and there is a new report that shows that Israelis wanted to assassinate Araghchi and the head of Iranian parliament in the negotiations they had with Americans.
Well, yeah, that's old news, and I'm not.
Yeah.
But it came out yesterday, so you got to ask yourself, why are they reporting old news like that now? And I was saying, is it just that it's a slow news day? Is that why? But the fact of the matter is that when those negotiations, I think Pepe and I reported on that about a month and a half ago. That during the first round of talks coming out, there was the legitimate concern, and in fact, Professor Morandi talked about it, that they had received information that they were going to try to shoot down Israel was trying to shoot down the Iranian plane that was returning the Iranian delegation back to Tehran. So I look at that and say, okay, why are they putting that out? Or another piece of really old news that's bizarre is CENTCOM was announcing that, the Marines have now come to the area. The USS Boxer is on scene. And I go, excuse me? The Boxer departed San Diego on March 18th of this year. So we've had April, May, June. That's almost 4 months ago. It didn't take that ship 4 months to get to the Arabian Sea or the Gulf of Oman or wherever the hell it is right now. It got there within 50 days, 40 days. So why are they reporting that now as if it's something new? It's just crazy. And a lot of the media was running with it. Oh, the Marines are building up their force. The Marines are here. Guys, they've been there all along for the last 2 months. I think the issue now is, how long can you keep a bunch of, 18, 19, 20, 21-year-olds cooped up on shipboard? They need to be active, exercising, out moving, etc. Instead, they're confined to trying to exercise on board a ship. Good luck with that.
Mm-hmm. I remember after that first meeting between Iranian delegation and Americans, when they got back, they didn't go directly to Tehran. They were somewhere else because I was in contact with Professor Marandi. Where are you and what are you doing? I'm not in Tehran. I'm somewhere else, and we're gonna go to Tehran. And
Yeah, I think they went by train.
yeah,
Or-
exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah. But they were, somehow when they got to Iran and they they were not all together. They separated in different directions to avoid any sort of problem because it's so amazing, looking at it.
Well,
You
again,
see-
the if you want to call it strategy, or you got to say what's the strategic purpose of killing the people who are the most, let's say, the most moderate, most open to negotiation. You get rid of them, and you got the people who say, "Hell no, we're nothing to negotiate about. We're going to kill you." How is that in Israel's interest? I find it. I'm completely baffled by that.
because they're so afraid of negotiations between Iran and the United States. I'm
Yeah,
not talking about the content. They don't want any negotiations between the two sides.
right.
That scares them. That they're so frightened by any sort of negotiation. That's why you see the Ali Larijani, for example. What was the main reason of assassinating Ali Larijani or Kamal Kharazi, who was assassinated together with his wife? These guys were not